Welcome, welcome. Well, thanks everybody for joining me today, or if you're in the future watching the recording, thanks for joining as well. My name is Robert Lee. I am the SANS Senior Instructor, and the course author of ICS515, as well as Forensics 578. Forensics 578 is the cyber threat intelligence class here at SANS, but today I'm here to talk about the ICS515 class, which has been massively updated. I want to walk through folks, answer any questions that you might have about it or general ICS security as well. But I'll walk through the course updates, kind of what to expect. And if you're interested in taking the course, kind of what you might walk away with in terms of skills and expertise. And I'll end up walking through some of the course overview slides today as well. But it's been a really long journey and pretty interesting to see the last 7 years teaching this course. So it's been always a course that I really wanted to exist back in 2014 when I authored it, where I didn't feel at the time, and honestly, I still feel this is kind of true in a large portion of our community. I feel that we really weren't taking an intelligence-driven approach to ICS security. It was very much anecdotal. When I first started out in industrial security, it was really based on either a standard or framework or some regulation in terms of what you did in ICS security, which were largely copy and pasted from IT. Whatever those standards and regulations at the time were, they were largely, hey, here's things we do in IT security, and these are the ones that are safe to do in OT. So let's just do that. It wasn't, this is what you need to do to reduce risk. It wasn't, this adds value to the mission. It wasn't, this really, sort of helps you against specific ICS threats. It was, yeah, of course you should patch, and of course you should do antivirus. Why not do those things over here? But here's how you do it better in ICS. And that's not great guidance. And again, it was very anecdotal in the sense of somebody had heard about an incident, or somebody knew about something, or maybe I've got, these insights that others don't have, and maybe you should do these things over here. It was very hush rumored. Not a lot of community insights or community-wide insights, again, on what the threats were actually doing. And I love intel for the purpose of it being ground truth reality. And there's a lot of different views on intelligence around the world, but what intelligence really represents is what actually happened. What do we really need to be prepared for? That's the concept. So not theory, not researchers coming up with things, although those can be interesting, but no kidding, what do you got to be prepared for on things we've seen the adversaries actually do? And again, at the time that I wrote the course, we didn't really have that in ICS. And so to be able to deliver a class that was taking insights from the threats, as well as insights from what works and what doesn't work and lessons learned in the field, and combine it together in a course to go beyond the preventative measures, to go beyond segmentation and firewalling and so forth, and really get into how do you go actively defend your environment? How do you go be proactive in your industrial environment and find those threats and respond to them and learn from them and adjust your defenses? That was really where all this started from. And 7 years later, this has been the biggest course update to the course so far. And I see everyone saying hello and good morning as well over there. So thank you for joining. Please do ask questions throughout the presentation. Definitely want to, the whole purpose of doing a live stream is be able to engage y'all. So any questions you have at any time, throw it over there. We've done a number of updates on the course over the years and keeping it fresh and case studies and changing a lab here or there, or maybe a new scenario every now and then. But we've never done a complete facelift on the course. Partly didn't think it was necessary. The material was really good and the students were having a lot of fun, but also I was never in a position to have full ICS ranges and equipment. And when we added the kit, when I authored the class in the very beginning and added the little snap circuits kit to it, that was already a big deal for SANS to have a physical kit and handling the logistics. And how do we ship this out? And Tim Conway sacrificed a lot of his time to figure out the logistics of it, and plenty of the awesome folks at SANS in the warehouse and so forth figuring that out. But long story short, we felt we had a pretty good mastery of it now, and I've had access to the different ICS ranges at Dragos and elsewhere to be able to pull in cool stuff, and also have been able to put together a really exciting kit. And that kit is a full PLC, HMI, engineer workstation, physical board, kind of everything that I think in many ways is a good ICS trainer well beyond just security. But I want to walk you through again in this presentation or this live stream, kind of what to expect day by day. And there have been some pretty significant changes to the course, obviously, with the renaming of the course as well as the additional day. It is a massively changed course. If you took the course in the last year or so, I would still give it time before you retake the course. I've seen some people talking about that. If you haven't taken if you took the course longer than like 2 years ago or so, that's when the consideration for retaking the course is. But I understand taking a 6-day course is a huge time commitment. So I'll speak on this mostly to all you new folks that are going to be coming and taking the course. As far as upcoming schedules, you can always go to sans.org/ICS515, and that'll give you the agenda. We've got some fantastic instructors in the course. I see one of them here in the chat, Peter Jackson, joining us from New Zealand. So Peter, it's probably pretty late there for you, but I appreciate you dialing in. We've got Dean, we've got Kai and Mark. We've got wonderful folks teaching this course around the world. They're all people that I consider not only experts in their field, but I'm grateful to be able to consider them friends. So please look at when the course is running to be able to take it from them. I've got some upcoming courses as well. I get to teach less these days. I try to still get out and teach 5 or 6 times a year. I was teaching 20 to 26 times a year. I do not recommend that. I love meeting all the students. 26 times a year for 26 weeks was a lot. 5 to 6 is a good balance for me. So I'm looking forward to seeing you all in person, but don't be shy of going and hanging out with Kai and Peter and all them. And then Stephen or Lauren, I don't know if we can get them, like Kai and Peter are on here. Feel free to get them a link if you want to be able to join me on the live stream if they want to pop on and show their rosy faces. But otherwise, I'll just let them troll me from the comments over here as well. Kai is calling from Germany, Peter calling in from New Zealand. Anyway, so while we're figuring that out, if they do get on here or not, let me go ahead and I'll share some slides on just kind of, again, what to expect and hopefully get the questions going here. As we go through each section, feel free to throw in questions that you might have about really anything. But I'll go ahead and start that sharing. Let me actually get to the first question from David here. Would you recommend this course for someone that has a general understanding of cybersecurity, but little ICS knowledge? I'm very interested in this. So great question. We get this all the time because again, going to a 6-day course is a big investment of your time. And so everyone always tries to balance, like, maybe I only go to one training a year, one every other year. What's the right one for me? When is the right time, et cetera? And my general viewpoint on this is, as a 500 level class, it can't be your first foray into cybersecurity training. That doesn't mean you have to take a SANS class before. It doesn't mean you have to take SANS ICS410, though it's a fantastic course. It means that you should have at least some foundational cybersecurity expertise. If you're familiar with virtual machines and setting up labs and things like that, or at least some hands-on experience, or have taken a cybersecurity training class before of any type. After that, you then want to be prepared on ICS terminology. And what I mean by that is, in 515, I don't start with, here's what a PLC is, here's what an RTU is, here's what a SCADA system is. That's expected knowledge coming into the 500 level class in ICS. I don't expect you to understand a wastewater treatment facility. I don't expect you to understand really anything other than the vocabulary and the cybersecurity fundamentals. So if you have some base knowledge of cybersecurity and you understand some of the language we're going to be using in a course, then you can just jump right into 515, and it's very accessible. And not only is the material accessible, but the labs themselves have step-by-step walkthroughs with screenshots, click here, do this, etc. So you're going to be perfectly fine moving through the course. You can kind of do it without walkthroughs if you want to test yourself. You do it with walkthroughs and anything that you struggle with. It's a very accessible course in that way. A good place to learn the language is honestly just Google and Wikipedia and YouTube and so forth. But I would recommend kind of 2 things. One, if you Google getting started in ICS security, and I'll see about passing this link to the folks to paste for folks. But if you Google just getting started in ICS cybersecurity, you'll see a blog that I wrote on robertmlee.org. And it's a collection of resources for getting started in ICS security. That is, let me put it over in the private chat here, and that'll get shared out to everybody. That link is a link I put together for some basics into control systems, and again, that kind of language, and trying to understand, what is this wonderful world of ICS. And what I would recommend if you're brand new to the field is don't worry so much about what's a Siemens system versus an Emerson system, or what's this PLC versus a PAC, and what is this. Don't dig into all that. What I'd start with is, what's the physics of it? How does a power generation facility work? How does a wastewater treatment facility work? What is an oil and gas production environment typically look like? Just kind of understand those, how it was made, like YouTube videos, and they'll walk you through a process. And I would start there, because the whole point of ICS security is not the control system or the networking or anything else. It's the mission of that site. And that mission is that operations and similar, what's up, guy? And learning kind of that world, and then figuring out the systems that facilitate it, and then figuring out the security risks of it and the threats that endanger it. It is a really accessible way to, again, learn the language to then be able to take full advantage of ICS515. You can kind of shortcut it by going to ICS410 if you've got the ability to go to both. ICS410 works really well as a lead into 515, and very much prepares you very well with that language. But if you have to choose one class or the other, I'm not trying to advocate which one you choose. You figure that out for yourself. If you end up choosing 515, though, learn the language first. That blog, that approach, get you there. Take a week or two of your time to kind of up level yourself, and come right into 515. You'll be good to go. Awesome. If you've taken the ICS 410, is this a logical extension to improve that knowledge? How easy is it to help customers after taking the course, especially if you don't have practical experience? Great question. I would say this course very much is a logical extension of 410. Now, 410 covers a wide range of areas as the foundational course in the track. It doesn't just cover the proactive defense work. It also covers some regulation discussions. It also covers some architecture discussions. It also talks about fundamental ICS knowledge on what is a PLC and similar. So it's each one of their days kind of tracks to a whole field of knowledge. One of those days, they talk about things like incident response and monitoring. That tracks then into 515, where we spend 6 days going over that specific subject matter expertise. So it logically extends very well. And it really just depends on the type of work and something you're going to do in customer environments. What 515 is really good for is for folks that are setting up cybersecurity strategy for their organization overall, for the folks that are going to be doing security operations work or kind of the incident response work, and also for those that are doing assessments that are more like threat hunting and architecture review type assessments. It's not going to really help you. I mean, it's arguable, but I don't think it's a clean shot to help you for like a vulnerability assessment or pen testing kind of assessments in those environments. But for architecture reviews, hunting, response, kind of security monitoring and operations, it absolutely prepares you for that, either in a kind of full-time role or in doing the assessments. Anyways, Kai, before I jump into the course and similar, since we've got you on, anything you want to say or introduce yourself to the audience as one of our 515's instructors?
Welcome, everyone. And I hope you are as super stoked as I am for the new class. And you might look there over that way, the other shoulder. See that there? What arrived yesterday with FedEx?
Nice.
See that?
I'm glad it actually arrived. All the bells and whistles.
Toys. Yeah. So this is what I'm most excited about. But also, I mean, on my day job, which I'm taking a break from right now, I mean, running Rob's incident response team at Dragos, we see a lot of crazy things out there. And as Rob just said, I mean, mostly we're still dealing with trying to understand our ICS environments, our architectures, trying to understand how to actually get data out of the environment. So over the past year, incidents that my team has worked on, even with very sophisticated internal security operations from some companies, we're still struggling with the basics, like how to actually collect data of the ICS environment and get it out of the environment in time for incident responders to actually get something done. So looking at these kinds of things, absolutely important, but also those first steps, like gaining visibility, understanding your environment, or those architecture reviews, these types of things. So super stoked. We have that now in class, and we see that evolution. So we've learned a couple of things as an industry, but we still have a long way to go.
Yeah, it's always good to have the optimism, and I'm pretty much like the biggest optimist in ICS security anyways, but it is disheartening when you walk on site for an incident and you realize they don't have data access, they don't know what's in their environment, they don't know connectivity, what they have, everything they've ever had exists outside of the plant or the mill or the substation. And it sucks when like 90% of the incident response engagement is doing all the stuff they should have done ahead of time for getting asset inventories and insights and similar. So making sure that we get that ahead of time and help you know how to do that in the class is also how this all blends together. It's a very logical flow of consuming intel to figure out how, what visibility do you need to get the detection strategy in place that you need to be able to respond and learn from things. I see Tim Conway over in Tim, how are you not joining the live stream? You can't just come into the chat like that. Tim, while he's not an instructor on the course, obviously played a heavy hand in developing it with the kit. He was the mastermind in many ways behind the kit with Jeff and Jason, and also just longtime friend, amazing person. Just got promoted at SANS. Congratulations, Tim, and so forth. And Dean. All right, so this is what happens. Like, this is a very like ICS security thing where I didn't know who was going to join, if anybody, and then the whole gang of friends come anyway. So welcome, Dean. Anything you want to say or kind of do an introduction or anything before we get rolling?
Yeah. Looking forward to teaching the new course. It's absolutely epic. And as Kai and you mentioned, the new kit is awesome. One of the things I always get in class is, like, when do we do threat hunting? And when do we do honeypots? So it's really important, as you mentioned, to start with the basics, the infrastructure, the visibility, and then kind of build up from there. Hey, Kai's got the kit. That's awesome.
Nice. Yeah. You haven't built it yet. You've had what, a whole 6 hours? You gotta hurry up, Kai.
But Kai, mine is actually plugged in. Mine's plugged in.
Why don't you show it fully on the screen, since you've got it built to show the board and everything as well, if it's doable.
Absolutely. So it's got it plugged in right here. So I'm actually hacking it right now. So here's the actual.
Yeah, so we've got the Click PLC with multiple network cards, as well as I/O modules, and it's got a historian kind of on the HMI side of the house. Got the board there with the generation, transmission, distribution, and industry customer perspective. I'll actually show a video that Tim Conway made in a little bit about it. But what a fantastic kit, fully interactive, fully done well. I think it's a damn good ICS trainer, just beyond an ICS security training kit. It's a lot of fun for folks, and then every student gets to keep that after class. And I expect to see you all at SANS ICS Summit presenting your cool projects on stage, where you take that kit and make cool things out of it. Michael Hoffman, one of our other wonderful instructors of this course, he came and presented off of the 612 kit. He set up a home coffee lab and grinder setup on his control system. That's pretty sweet. Looking forward to the person who does the beer brewing off of the Click PLC. That's more 515 style. 612 is very coffee. 515 is very brew your own beer style. So we'll have some fun there. Anyways, cool. So I'm going to go ahead and share my slides. I'm going to go day by day of kind of what to expect. Open it up to any questions. I'll open it up to Kai and Dean and any comments that they have. And that way y'all can get a good awareness of, again, kind of what to expect with you all. Oh, you're at network security, so you're avoiding a camera because you have a mask on. Tim, that is the weakest excuse. Like, it's okay to have a mask on, Tim. We're not going to judge you, but that's fine. That's fine. Just pretend. It's cool. All right, so let me go ahead and share my screen and get over to the slides here. And you should be able to see my slides now. Kai, can you give me some affirmation here? Oh, I see it. It's up on the screen anyways for me because I'm an idiot. Good. All right. So perfect. So just from an expectation setting right off the bat of the course, if you've never taken a SANS course before, each of the course days are like a book in of itself. And if you notice, every one of the slides, as an example, goes into a bunch of notes underneath it. There's around 120 to 140 slides a day, so 120 to 140 pages of material. It's drinking from a fire hose for sure, these SANS courses. When you think about it, the SANS master's program they have on the collegiate side, each course is a full semester-long course credit because of how many hours go into a day. So it's beefy. But let's look at what we're trying to do in the course. So first day, or the first section, if you will, is ICS Cyber Threat Intelligence. This is a day where we really set it up on trying to understand, what does the world of ICS threats look like? What would we want to learn from them in terms of doing our security work? Where are we going to get that data and those insights? How are you going to turn that data into intel? I'm not trying to teach you how to be an intelligence analyst. in 515. That's my 578 class. That's the one where we teach people how to be Intel analysts. This is trying to teach you enough about Intel to be dangerous on consuming it. So there's Intel generation, Intel analyst, and there's Intel consumption, which is our security operations and incident response and security folks. So I'm teaching you to be more dangerous on Intel and understand that it's not just indicators of compromise and IP addresses and OSINT bulletins, but much better understandings of tactics, techniques, procedures of adversaries, understanding how they operate, and the things that would really matter in ICS security. On the day, we always start off the day with some level of case study into some big ICS event or threat. Can't start the class without a case study in Stuxnet. I promise you we take a different flavor on it than all of the other things you've heard about Stuxnet before, with a real focus on how you could defend against it and the opportunities for defense. It seems interesting, I think, and maybe I don't think anybody's ever actually said this, but it might seem dated to start off with Stuxnet, which happened in 2009, 2010. Here, 11 years later. But I will tell you, most ICS facilities I walk into still don't have the ability to detect the easy detectable things out of a Stuxnet and the tradecraft that was exhibited there. You don't have to worry about having Stuxnet in your facility, but the TTPs that were displayed and the way that the operation went down, you better be prepared for. And most folks aren't. So we start off with that. Right off the bat, we'll get in. You'll see this flow where there's a blue section or the kind of the top line section, and then a lab. That flow follows throughout the course, where you don't want to sit there for 6 hours and hear me drone on to you. So we end of a 6-hour course day, try to have about 3 hours of lecture, 3 hours of hands-on labs. That's the general flow. And so you get into a topic, lab, topic, lab kind of flow. That first lab, you're building the program logic controller. It's where you get access to that kit for the first time. I couldn't put it off anywhere in the day. It had to be the first lab because there's no chance the students are sitting around with a cool kit on their desk and just listening to me say, don't open it, don't touch it. There's no chance. So first lab, we get into it, we open it up, we put it together, and show you how to build out that program logic controller, that PLC that you have as your student kit. Then we get into that threat intelligence primer of, again, what is this world of Intel? We talk a little bit about thinking, right? How do you think about competing hypotheses and evaluating situations where there's not an easy or clear-cut answer? Do a quick lab on that, which is a non-technical lab, one of the few non-technical labs in the course, but it's one of the ones that I value the most. It's just an ability to game theory some things out, to think about the scenario that we've got in front of us. We get into the first major model in the course, ICS Cyber Kill Chain, walk you through that, how to distinguish ICS attacks, what really, if I have a phishing email to an electric company, is that something ICS themed? Probably not, but it could be. Is it the start of something that could get into the industrial operations, or is it just an intrusion into an electric company? Just because you are an industrial company doesn't mean most things you see are going to be related to your industrial operations. Actually, most of them won't be. But when there's those few that are actually trying to get to your industrial operations, we want to flag those, start going deeper. We start walking in on evaluating some Intel reports and kind of being critical of them. It'd be boring in class if I made you write an Intel report. You'd hate me. I'd hate me. Not going to be fun. It's much more fun to critique other people's Intel reports and teach you how to read them effectively. But then we get into a fun section where we use Shodan, and we use the professional version of Shodan to go map out ICS information attack space, understanding kind of what's out there, how to find those devices that are online and similar, and then bring it together in Lab 1.4, where I teach you how to take Shodan and Maltego, combine it together to create some nice visualizations and a heat map of your organization's industrial automation footprint that ends up online, so you can keep monitoring that and be aware of it. The whole theme of the day is really to set the focus for the following day when we get into visibility. We'll talk about more of that in a second. But in the topic of visibility, too many analysts try to collect it all. Like, oh, I want all the data. And there's a lot of reasons you don't want all the data. One of them is you're going to drown in the data and not actually find what you want. So we try to use the Intel day to help guide us on what data sources would be valuable. What data do we want to then be able to start pulling together a collection strategy to then be able to go do security operations and detection work and incident response. So that's kind of a highlight of the first day. We've got 4 more of these to walk through. But before that, any questions on day one or any commentary from Dean and Kai? Actually, before Dean and Kai, before you jump in, let me answer the questions in the chat. The first one, the new exam will have like VMware-based labs, or is the exam questions only? The GIAC tests are all just questions only. I think GIAC is looking at doing some practical testing, but I'm not aware if that's active in any of the courses. It's not in 515. It's all questions based. Generally, the GIAC certification, which is the GRID, the Global Response Industrial Defense certification, usually the way to think about it is it's multiple choice questions, but they're not just like rote memorization kind of stuff. They'll give you screenshots of outputs from tools or network diagrams or ICS packet captures and similar, and ask you questions of them. So it's a very in-depth technical exam, but it's not practical in the sense that you have to solve challenges with packet captures and so forth in tools. So it's just question based. The next question is, would students be able to keep the kit after the training? Absolutely. The kit and the VMs that go with it, with the human machine interface, engineer workstation, the materials you need to continue operating that kit after the class, it's all there for you. It's professional versions, so you're able to keep running it after the class, and you can go turn it into some pretty sweet things. Again, I'm looking forward to the students coming back and showing us the cool projects they worked on post-class. And then let's see. On the IR section, we'll cover that during the IR piece when we get to section 4. But yeah, we do talk about forensics collection, like where to collect data and so forth. But I'll show you the guide for that, or the day breakout here in a couple of slides. Dean, Kai, anything before I navigate off section 1? Anything you want to call out?
Yeah, just something real quick. I mean, day one, all about threat intel. A lot of students say, well, where's the technical stuff? There's a lot of technical in the day one or section 1 material, and it just kind of builds off and gets more technical as the course goes through. But a lot of the discussions in class around threat intel is like, well, do we use that to do patching? Because right now we're trying to get a patch process in place. And so there is a nuanced discussion in section 1 or day 1 that talks about, like, it's really a good idea to approach patching from a smart perspective. If you randomly go out and patch whatever CVSS scores that are high, that may not actually reduce the risk to the ICS. In some cases, it may impact safety and reliability of operations. So those discussions come out in day 1, which helps you use that threat intelligence to prioritize patching in certain ways.
Yeah, absolutely. You can use intel on patching, on security architecture, on your collection strategy, on detection. Like you can and should be using intel as an overlay to help guide how you think about your variety of security efforts. That's a great call out. Kai, anything?
Yeah, just real quick, because yeah, some of the feedback we always get for day 1 is like, hey, why is this like so non-technical and so much theory? Because guys, this is how investigation actually works. Forensics is fun. We all know that. We're nerds. We like to hack, but it's just collecting data and looking at the data. If you don't know what to look for, if you don't know actually how to structure investigation, all the forensics won't help you. So actually the material of the day 1, if we didn't have that, we wouldn't know how to structure investigations and what to actually look for. So
yeah,
really
absolutely. It's more technical now anyways, and there's fun labs there. So you guys are living in the past. I don't think we're going to get that kind of commentary on day 1 anymore. But on the next question we have from Brian, cool kit, is it included in the cost of the class? Yes, it is. And so as part of the class price, you get the kit already included. And on an operating system, you can bring whatever you want now. Used to, you had to bring a system that had Windows, but now we have Windows VM that we provide. So as long as you can run virtualized software on your laptop, you're good to go. So the course, the laptop requirements are on the sans.org/ICS515 page. Basically, you need admin privileges on the laptop. You need the ability to access the BIOS in case your virtualization is turned off. You need a computer that has at least 8, I'd prefer 16 gigabytes of RAM, and run virtualization software. If you can run VMware or VMware Fusion or so forth, you'll be all set. Are there scholarships in play for this one? Some of the folks in the co-op world, as an example, might have limited funding. Tim, if you're still on, you might be able to answer this question a little bit better. I know there are some of those programs that exist. So there's a couple ways to get cheaper SANS classes. One of them is many organizations have the voucher program, and you should check with your employer to see if they have those vouchers. Another way is sometimes SANS will partner with trade associations and similar. I know years ago they partnered with NRECA in the US to pass out vouchers for free to cooperatives, as an example. I don't know what the state of that program is today, but it existed at one point, so you should definitely check into it. And then probably the best way is the work study program, where you sign up to basically come help set up the event the day before and help tear it down the day after. And you get, like, I don't know, it's 50, 60, 70% off or something in the course. It's pretty ridiculous. So it's probably the best deal at SANS for sure. Other than that, we'll try to we always try to figure out ways to get the course out to cooperatives and municipalities and so forth, smaller infrastructure sites. So if none of those sort of satisfy the query, stay tuned, because Tim and I think a lot about that at times. And Tim says there's definitely ways to reach out, and he can point to the right organization. So T Conway at SANS.org, Tim Conway. So T Conway at SANS.org. Reach out to him specifically on that question, and he'll hook you up. And then I have a question from Alan. Will cloud-based ICS be covered or discussed in the course? We do talk about it and talk about considerations around it. We have some sections on like virtualization, whether it's in cloud or on-prem, and how to think about that. But there's not a ton to do or talk about beyond that. So it's not like woven in throughout the course. Basically, it's highlighted when we talk about the incident response day of how to think through that and what those considerations might be. Generally, what I find, and I think Dean and Kai's experience probably reflect this, is while we have a focused agenda in the course, when people come, they usually come with a variety of questions all over the field from ICS security. And we love that stuff, and we weave it in exactly throughout the class. So if there's an itch you're looking to scratch that's not in the course agenda, as long as it's ICS security related, it's something we're happy to go through in the class and show examples of and so forth. All right, so let me show and talk through section 2 then to get y'all a little bit familiar with it then. Let's see. Window here, and let me do this. Perfect. All right, so section 2 should be up on the screen now. And what we'll see here with section 2 is that visibility and asset identification day. Previously in 515, prior to the update, visibility and detection were 1 day. We've broken them out into 2 days. There's so much material to cover. There's no possible way to do it in 1 day. That was a big change in the course. And if we look at day 2 and kind of how it's structured, right off the bat, we start with a non-ICS threat case study, something that has nothing to do with cybersecurity at all. And it was the Bhopal disaster, which is unfortunately a very macabre subject to start off the day. Folks died. It was a horrible industrial accident. I encourage you to look it up on Wikipedia or Google or so forth, or attend the class and learn about it. But there was a lot of lessons learned in that industrial disaster around why visibility matters, not only from network security, but alarm management and so forth, where the safety industry evolved over the years, which good. We got Peter that just came in, who's our resident safety engineer, and just sort of what that meant to the community, and to think about not just reliability and availability, but human life and environmental protection and the safety of these environments. And that gets us digging into P&ID diagrams. It gets us digging into kind of what is the value of engineering documents. We start talking about visibility of the process to then start getting into the network. And I think it's a nice way to kick off the day and make sure we're talking about the right things, that even though a lot of our work is going to be in ICS networks, those ICS networks are there for the control environments, which are there for the physical process and the mission of that site. We want to make sure we don't forget that. So right at the top, we talk about asset inventories, and one of my favorite topics, collection management framework. It is another big model in the class that we leverage, or framework, and it is something everybody should put in place for their industrial environment. So we teach you how to do that. This is good from being a consultant and going helping people from assessments, or doing it yourself internal to your own environment. But it's a foundational tool to put in place for you about understanding what data sources you have, which ones matter for what use cases, and how to take advantage of them. We'll then get into Lab 2.1, which is operating the process, which is actually then getting back hands-on with the kit, where you're now not just setting up the kit because you've already got it set up, but you're actually going through the logic, you're actually going through the industrial process, you're seeing how you operate the electric operations system that you have in front of you. Then we get into understanding what are IT protocols that you will see and help you in ICS networks. We dig into that, see what you can extract out, a lot of folks think you need to go actively scan a system to get controller information. It's not true. Most of the things you want is in traffic already. So pulling out serial IDs, firmware versions, all sorts of good information you can do natively through traffic analysis. So we teach you and show you how to do that. Lab 2.2 introduces you to the ICS range, where there's packet captures and memory images and so forth throughout the course, taken off of an ICS range that we stood up at the Dragos HQ. This is a full functional range with all sorts of controllers and HMIs and so forth, all real equipment. So it's really, really good data set. Again, we start with the IT stuff first. Then we get into a case study of how to deal with, prepare for, and think about ransomware and some of the big things that we consistently see get people in trouble that are tied to the lack of visibility you have and what that relates to in ransomware. Then you get into the ICS protocols and teaching and showing you how to use the ICS protocols for visibility and collection and what's the value in those protocols. Some of them are extraordinarily feature rich. Ethernet, IP, and SIP come to mind of lots of information you can pull out. There's some information that you can pull out, but maybe not as much. Step 7 is a good protocol, but you're not going to pull as much out of it that you might in SIP. So walking you through those differences and where to look and what to grab to really help you with your inventory and your collection. Get into a case study on Dragonfly and Havocs, which was the second ever ICS tailored malware and threat group. So we'll walk through those, and then we'll end on the day of getting back into the kit to use some tools to map out its network and help you see that from a passive analysis perspective, which is pretty common for what most asset owners and operators are doing these days, and to getting understanding of those ICS architectures. Beyond the control system now, what does a typical DCS architecture look like, or distributed control system? What does a typical hydroelectric facility network look like? Might think about it and what to expect when you walk into one of these plants, that kind of material that we were going through. So with that, let me pause for a second. Peter, if you want to introduce yourself, say anything, so forth, then let's go around the room and see if anybody has any comments or commentary on day 2 to add. And then if we have any questions in the chat before we get on to day 3.
Good morning, Rob. How you going?
Yeah, doing well, man. Missing New Zealand, but I can see COVID is treating you well and growing out the beard and doing well, man.
It's getting there. It's getting there. I've still got a long time to go, but no, I'm pretty happy with it. Thanks for welcoming me onto the chat. Great to see you guys, Kai and Dean. Really excited about this refresh of ICS515. I mean, the course was already great, and it's even greater now. 6 days, it's going to be rocking it. And again, kind of aligns to that 2021 threat, because as we know, our threats evolve. So our course and our training needs to evolve in line, and adding that additional day, because we were already so packed in content, just gives us that capacity to really equip our students to go out and do active defense. It's fantastic.
No, that's great. I would never do this to the class, but I would love to just have a day where there's no material to just answer all the questions that everybody has and just to hang out with folks, because there's usually a full day's worth of material and just questions that people ask. So to your point, there was already way too much material in the class, so breaking it out a little bit was good, which puts hopefully a little less stress on you, Kai, and Dean, and folks. I think you guys never cussed me out to my face. But I imagine as you tried really hard to get through the days on time, because there was so much content, you were about ready for me to make this change. So thanks for your patience.
Well, I think the other thing about it is that's really the value in a SANS course. It's not just the slides and the notes and the equipment, and again, the PLCs pretty kick-ass, or the labs, but it's actually the instructor experience. And what have I seen from my safety background as we look at safety and security? Kai from incident response, Dean from his background, and Mark from the CISA side, your stuff from your past, and now Dragos. We've all got this rich background that we get to layer in using the content. It's a great vehicle to be able to equip, again, our students as they go out there into the world.
Awesome. Well, Dean, Kai, anything you want to add on section 2 before we jump into section 3?
Yeah, sure. I think day 2 is awesome because you get to see what's on the network. That's the huge benefit there. And I think the other thing is, like, a lot of questions in class that, people are just getting into ICS. How do I do this? What am I going to see? How do I get the visibility, right? And there's various tools out there that are free and paid for. The most important thing is to have some tool to help you that looks and dissects those ICS specific protocols. So I think, day 1 is awesome. Day 2 is like awesomer, and it just skyrockets from there. I think day 2 is seriously technical and just drives home okay, now we can see the networks, now we can see the threats, now what do we do? And everybody's gung-ho about the labs and then for the rest of the entire course. And then, of course, day 6, which I'm sure you'll talk about, which is kind of putting all that knowledge to the test. So
awesome. Kai?
Yeah, just to go all German incident responder, and you all eat your vegetables and do learn how to do collection management frameworks, please. And I'll put on the monocle and yell at you in a German accent in class.
Yeah, dude, if a ICS company only put in a CMF, that's like the one thing they walked away from, and just actually put in a collection management framework, I feel like a significant boost in security would take place across every element of that company. Like, it highlights your gaps, it highlights what you need to focus on, and it streamlines investigations and security work and so forth. So it is interesting that, like, you could take 1 or 2 topics out of any given day and make like a whole career's worth of effort doing it. So that's, yeah, eat the vegetables. That's a good comment there. All right, perfect. So we got one question over from Joe talking about the on-demand version of the course. So the on-demand version of the course does reflect the changes. It all starts in October's runs. So if you've purchased the course before, have any questions like that, just reach out to the SANS on-demand folks. You got your emails there. But if you start the course in October or after, you'll be on the new version. All right. So when it comes to section 3, what to expect is we start off with, speaking of our Germans here, Kai, we start off with the German Stillworks attack, a highly underexplored attack in the public world, with a sophisticated attack on a still environment that caused physical destruction and environmental damage. So we walk through that, what's known, some behind the scenes insights, and how to think about that in terms of going and hunting and being proactive for environments in these industrial worlds. Gets right into a section on ICS threat hunting. How do you do it? Why do you do it? When do you do it? Different ways to approach hypothesis generation in industrial environments. Jumps us right into the section on building a threat detection strategy, and then right into our first lab where it's around detecting stage 1 intrusions. So the labs start off with our attack scenario that happens in the range. You'll go through 2 scenarios, one in the range, one in the kit. They may or may not be intertwined. You'll find out. But the first steps is figuring out, is what we're seeing actually themed towards the industrial environments and worth tracking or not? Kind of spoiler alert, of course it's going to be. So we teach you how to deal with that. We then get into a case study on Sandworm and their leveraging of Black Energy 2 and Black Energy 3 malware to go after a wide variety of industrial infrastructures around the world, starting in 2013, 2014 timeframes. Then we get into ICS network security monitoring. How do you employ NSM network security monitoring specifically as part of a detection strategy, which gets us into 2 really fun labs. One where you're looking across the ICS network and seeing the adversaries, lateral movement and their actions in the industrial network, into another lab where they might be manipulating control. I think the title gives it away of the lab, but traffic analysis, control manipulation. So the adversary starts actually manipulating the control of the industrial environment, and you've got to figure out how and where and what. Then we get into event analysis and physical consequence. If something's actually happening in the industrial environment, what are you doing? What do you think through? How do you think through that process? And we'll get into 2 fun labs there that are both in the kit, which is dealing with validating system logic changes taking place to a PLC, as well as then going and making sure the operations itself still works as it should, or if it doesn't, why might it not? And that starts to take us more into scenario 2 and the crazy things that might be happening in that scenario 2. So before I kick into section 4, any comments around the room on day 3, things that y'all have observed so far, interesting insights, that kind of fun stuff? Crickets.
I think that ICS threat hunting, again, we know SANS has got the threat hunting summit and a whole threat hunting curriculum. Again, layering that into ICS and how do you do threat hunting in an OT environment. Heaven forbid we use that term. But in terms of our industrial environment, what's going to add value? How can we use the tools at our disposal, including engineering and cyber tools, to understand those threats and find those unknown unknowns? I think that's one of my favorite parts of that day.
Awesome.
Yeah, I have to agree that the threat hunting aspect is like the mature aspect where you have the data that you were looking for and you kind of, it's preemptive the attack, right? So cutting the adversary off before they're in or during an attack. And a lot of times what we see in class as well, it's like, well, how long does it take to get a foothold in the ICS? How long does it take to take its system down? And a lot of times we see the adversary kind of poking around for some time, which means we have the advantage as ICS defenders to kind of see that activity beforehand, threat hunt, and kind of reduce that impact to operations before there's actually an issue. So yeah, loving the threat hunt aspect for sure.
Awesome. All right. With that, let me share my screen one more time on the window here, specifically to get into the incident response component of it, which is one of my favorite sections. All sections are created equal. They're all wonderful, but man, it's so much fun to do IR. And I always tell people it's not really fun to do incident response during incident response. It's fun to talk about incident response after incident response, like at the bar. Like it's always stressful in the incident. There's never a day they're like, high five, plants are blowing up. I mean, that's not good. You know, that's not fun. But it's always fun to figure these things out. It's like a puzzle, right? So section 4 is all about incident response. This is where we get in. We start off with Sandworm again, but on the Ukraine 2015 side of the house. For every other instructor, you get the normal view of 2015 cyber attack in Ukraine, the first ever cyber attack, take down electric power. It's thoughtful. It's good analysis. When you get me as an instructor, it's ranty and like behind the scenes of all the things that I hated of what happened because I got to be involved in it. So maybe you get the more professional view with other instructors. But I walk you through kind of what happened, what really we didn't talk about publicly. Again, in the material, it's a lot of information around how to use all the tools we're talking about to be successful in these events. We get right into ICS digital forensics, which is not the point. We're not trying to make you digital forensics experts, right? It's instant response. Those two things are different. However, you need to know enough about digital forensics to know what you're collecting and what you need to be doing in instant response. So we talk about how to acquire data in an operational environment, where to go, data sources, etc. 4.2, we get back into the kit, looking at a logic analysis, digging into PLC logic files, understanding how to reset them, and so forth. Get into a case study on Electrum and CRASHOVERRIDE, which was the second Ukraine cyber attack to take down electric power. Happened in 2016. Then we get into understanding a little bit about initial compromise vectors that are pretty typical in industrial. The lab is on phishing emails, but we talk a lot about VPNs and OEM and vendor maintenance access points and things like that. What are the common things that we see that kick off instant response? And then getting into those forensic data sources, you get the memory images off of the HMI of the environment, go through that, teach you how to dig through that and see what's going on there. And then actually digging into the network traffic at the kit to understand what might be happening on physical process changes that are happening over the network. So 5 technical, hands-on, make you tired and be done at the end of the day kind of labs to get you in and teach you how to respond and what kind of core skills you're going to need to be successful there. So Kai didn't comment last time. Anything you want to comment on the IR day?
I mean, it's going to be fun. It's going to be stressful. The advantage is if you do it in the SANS class, we won't turn on the sprinklers and start yelling at you at random times during the day, and like every 10 minutes, Rob pokes his head in and acts like, how are we doing? How are we doing? Can we have another meeting on this? Which is what's usually happening during incident response. But talking about
I do not ask for meetings. You are so full of it.
No, you're not doing that. Like standing
I don't think I've ever asked for a
any
meeting
CEO of any random corporation out there. No, Rob would never do that. Definitely not.
Yeah.
But having been in situations where like the CIO of my former company, you can look up my bio to figure out who that might have been, sat next to me for an hour while I was doing forensics. And that's fun, not so a part of preparation. And I mean, I used to be an aviator, and then I started working for Dragos. So now my days are long. Kidding. But we have all these fancy phrases and memorizers in aviation. So look up the 6P rule. It's not safe for work, so I won't spell it out here, but it's really important for instant response as well. If you don't go in unprepared, I guarantee you it's going to be messy. So walking through the steps, figuring out what's important, and actually learning how to exercise this in your own environment, so you at least do some of the real world experience, is key to this. I guarantee you will fail if you don't do that. So even a SANS class, as good as it can get, can only show you how to do this, but you certainly need to exercise after this. So whetting your appetite on that day for, hey, let's get back home and let's run an exercise and do some forensics, but also run all the communications challenges and put the team through its paces. That's the real fun.
Perfect. Awesome. Dean, you want to jump in?
Yeah, quickly. So absolutely agree. Even little Bobby suggests prepare is a good thing to do for incident response. So that's always nice. Another day is, this day, incident response day, is like bursting at the seams with content, right? And it's one of those days where everybody in class has a question and has an experience to share. And it's one of those days where it's like we go like, end to end, like full bore. And a lot of value comes out of that, not only through the content of the class, but through the networking in class and during the breaks as well, like sharing those stories. How did you prepare? What do you have in your jump bag for ICS? Well, this is what I did in an oil and gas facility with a monobuoy, like, a kilometer offshore. All of those things comes out mostly in this day for incident response day. So great value there, even outside of the class content.
Awesome. All right, perfect. Let's jump in the interest of time to section 5, the last day of lecture. There is a section 6. I'll talk about that in a second. And this one I try to have be a lighter day, where we start off with Xenotime and Trisis, basically the first malware and threat group explicitly to try to kill people. They targeted safety instrumented systems in petrochemical facility in Saudi Arabia, try to kill people through a cyber attack. We talk about that in depth, about the behind the scenes, kind of some of the stuff that's not public and what you need to know. Get into kind of what's the goals of threat environment manipulation. The things to think about here is really the whole point is what can we take away from malware and threats to help feed what we're doing in terms of security posture after the incident. It's kind of what happens after the incident to go put us in a better place than we were before the incident. Then we'll finish out the scenario 2, which was the kit, by figuring out what was really going on, maybe in the logic itself, getting root cause analysis on the PLC kit and what went wrong. And then we'll get into a fun lab on Yara, which is a type of file format to search for things, basically like indicator compromise kind of searching, but much more flexible than that, and create some Yara rules there on scenario 1's threats. And then interestingly enough, it looks like it's a light day, but it's not. That's not entirely true. It's a lighter day in lecture, but it's about half the day more in labs. Because lab 5.3 is a mini capstone. So if you're taking the class on demand or alone, it's fully accessible to you, and there's a walkthrough in it, and you get to test out all the skills that you had. If you are in the class with other students, you'll get to work together as a group and make it a really fun and informational kind of capstone. So not a let's see who wins, but a go dig into another whole scenario, start to finish. You've already wrapped up the 2 scenarios in the 5-day long course. Here's the cherry on top, whole new scenario, dig in and figure out what's going on. And then at the end of that is then when we'll get into day 6. And day 6 is explicitly a capstone day, where all day long, no lecture, you get a ton of stuff thrown at you. I'm trying to make sure that it's more than you can finish. I don't want it to be where you just get through the class and sitting on your fingers and hands. In some SANS classes, with no offense to them, it's totally appropriate. But some SANS classes, you'll finish day 6 early, maybe by noon or whatever else, to catch your flight or whatever. I hate that. That's not my style. My style is you paid for the class, you get the full class, which is, again, not an insult to anybody else. But I want you there as long as possible in the class, not able to finish and getting through all the material. So there's a ton of ICS questions and stuff that's getting thrown at you with memory images and packet captures and logic files and all sorts of stuff to use the skills of the class that we went through to be answering these kind of forensic-like questions out of those environments. And day 6 is something that I continually keep adding to. So as I come up with new ideas or whatever, just go and throw more into the CTF. So that one is a nice kind of always evolving day as well. So quite a bit of fun, and it'll be on like the scoring system and so forth. So there is an opportunity for those of you in live classes to earn challenge coins as an example. So, all right. And Steven, if you could go ahead and roll the video, we're going to show probably the first 3 or 4 minutes for the audience. This is a quick video that Tim Conway put together showing the ICS515 kit in action, just so you get an understanding of what you're going to be dealing with in the course. For my other instructors on, feel free to Mystery Science 3000 this and comment and jump in as you'd like. First up, we see the actual board. So as Tim highlights here, there's 4 quadrants. Up in the left is the power generation quadrant. So you've got your combined cycle facility. You've got your electric transmission quadrant over in the top right. So think electric transmission operations. Your electric distribution quadrant down in the bottom right. And of course, you've got your industrial customer, which is our oil and gas facility down in the bottom left. Everything here is tactile, functional, flipping reclosures and changing load on the system. All of that is seeable in real time. So as he manually adjusts the load, you'll see kind of the power draw off of the generation unit. Spoiler alert, don't draw too much power. You might trip the unit or trip a relay. So there's a fully working electric operation sort of emulation here, right? So nice ability to be able to dig in and work with everything manually as well as remotely through the HMI, the engineer workstation, and kind of those operations. Again, the manual operations all work. You'll get a really good understanding of electric operations. The point of the class is not to teach you about electric. We have people come from mining and water and chemical and every different industry, but having an example of industrial operations to make the scenarios more real and tangible, as well as understanding of industrial operations to just up-level your ICS knowledge in general, makes it very, very accessible. So don't focus on the electric piece, focus on the fact that it's real industrial operations that you get to play around with and become dangerous on. Here we have a view over in the PLC programming software itself. So you'll be able to get in and deal with the programming logic itself. Here's the HMI to be able to actually interact then with the kit, see what's going on in the HMI, see what's going on in the real world, see the alarms and the sequence of events that are taking place. Our full HMI on the combined cycle generation unit. So you've got your combustion turbine as well as your steam turbine, and actually getting to see what changes in the real world take place or calculations that you might do for adjusting, your heat ratios or whatever else that we want to be able to deal with here. What is going on in real world versus maybe what the adversary is trying to do. What could the impact be? How would you respond to that? How would you detect it? Kind of really digging in deeply here. And again, it's all completely functional. Like Tim, Jason, and Jeff did a phenomenal job with setting this up. Tim used to be electric grid operator, and he also taught electric grid operations to his utility. So everything here is as real as it gets, and so forth. So pretty exciting there. Also the ability to see kind of the different HMI screens, right? Your wider area view of transmission distribution operations, your view of generation, your view of residential and industrial, all the different alarms that are taking place. It is, I cannot say enough nice things about what they put together the kit. It is so exciting to be able to have this in class. Even though there's 5 or 6 labs in the class that deal with it, you could do so much education and training on this kit after the class. It's ridiculous. And set up a nice little home lab and environment with this because it's all real stuff. For my instructors on any comments that you want to share as the video is playing?
Yeah, the only comment I have is I gotta take off and catch a flight, Rob. No, I'm just joking. Absolutely, completely representative of an actual power grid. The full generation, transmission, distribution, the industrial side as well. And I guess the idea is to protect this infrastructure, making sure you don't trip the breakers or an adversary trips the breakers. Real life emulation. So yeah, fantastic kit.
Awesome.
Yeah, just to add, those of you that ever participated in the NetWars Grid edition at one of our ICS conferences, now you get a Grid edition kit. Albeit on a smaller scale, but still you get it to play at home with it. How cool is that? I'm so stoked on this. It's amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think that at the 500 level, again, we get so many either experienced controls people from that ICS space or IT, kind of experienced IT security people wanting to defend their industrial organization more in the ICS environment. And so this might be kind of their introduction into ICS if they're coming into the class. And so such a genuine, real, and how it's evolved over time is fantastic. Really excited about this kit and how it's going to set up, especially those kind of IT-based folks as they come into controls and have a really good mindset for active defense.
Absolutely. Yeah, I always like getting ICS security professionals in the course and so forth, but it is super impactful to get folks from traditional IT security skill sets coming into the course, even if they're not working in an OT security role in their plants or in their company. If they're at an industrial company, to know what's happening over there and then be able to map their skill sets and how to go contribute to that mission throughout the day-to-day operations, like that's phenomenal. But Thanks everybody for tuning in today. Thanks for my wonderful instructors and Tim for jumping on and being able to interact. Hope this was educational to you about what to expect of the course. We're really excited about the update and seeing you all again in class, especially now that live classes are starting again. That's phenomenal and a great opportunity to come and hang out with you all. Please come take the class, come see us, and stay safe out there. So thanks everybody. And